Good morning everybody, it's Mrs. Lee here. It's week 3, assembly number 3. Let's make a start on what's the time, Mr. Wolf? Well, we look at the clock first and we can see that the minute hand, that's the long hand, is on the 1. Now I know, because I've been telling the time for many, many years, that once that big hand, that minute hand, is on the 1, it means it's, anybody know? Yeah, that's right, 5 past. Just know it, 5 past. So it's 5 past what though, Mrs. Lee? Well, I look to the hour hand, the short hand, and I can see that that one is just on the 10. So it means it's 5 past 10. 5 past 10 at night and you should be asleep. Do you remember Mrs. Lee said a rule in her house is that she would be fast asleep at 10 o'clock. So good bedtime for Mrs. Lee. Hopefully you are in bed too. But if it's 5 past 10 in the morning, then we should be up and about and getting on and working hard. Working hard is one of our golden rules. Hey, and our Makaton sign this week is rules, isn't it? We've been thinking about rules a lot, haven't we? Okay, one more thing before I go back to rules. Language of the month this month is Filipino, Tagalog. I wonder if any of you came down and had a quick look at the Language of the Month board, and you will hopefully know who the children are who hear this language and maybe speak this language at home. We've been learning to say kamusta, kamusta, okay, which says hello. So, right, we've been to the research centre and we had a little look at Antarctica. We have also been outside Mrs. Lee's office and we have been kind and helpful and been thinking about saving our planet. Right, so this time I thought we would just go back to the research centre, but we will look at our author of the month. I'm really excited because I went snooping around the school. Okay, that's me pretending to snoop around school with a magnifying glass. Okay, a bit of acting there. I was snooping around the school. Guess what I found? I found a really cool David McKee book. Now, the thing is, when I do my assemblies, I'm here in school all on my own. It's the weekend when I make the assemblies, and there's nobody to ask permission, because you know you should, before you take anything, ask permission. So I'm going to ask permission now. I'm going to say, Mrs. Eagle, hi. In your room, when I was investigating and snooping around, I found a David McKee book, and it looked really, really cool, and I wondered if I could borrow it. Is that okay? Oh, thanks, Mrs. Eagle. So what I've done, Mrs. Eagle, is I've put it in the research centre, but just for today, I'm going to pop it back into your classroom before I leave the school. Okay, so in 3, 2, 1, I'm going to meet you over in the research centre, and what we're going to do is have a little look at the David McKee book that I found. Exciting! See you! Hello children, so here we are back in the research centre, but we're looking at the author of the month. Who is the author of the month? Yes, that's right, it's David McKee. And he's written lots and lots of Elmer books, and I've seen you come down at lunchtime and you've been reading them. Some really, really lovely stories. But like I said, when I was snooping around the school, I found a really cool book by David McKee that belongs to Mrs. Eagle. It's called Mr. Benn. Now, if you're as old as Mrs. Lee and Mrs. Eagle, then you would have watched Mr. Benn on television. I don't know if he's on anymore, I don't think so. And Mr. Benn, this is Mr. Benn here, and this is Mr. Benn here and here and here and here, but he looks different each time, because each time he would get up in the morning and he would go to this fancy dress shop where he would go into another world. And I thought, wouldn't it be really nice to read you one of the stories? Okay, now this is a really old story, so it's a story that Mrs. Lee and Mrs. Eagle would have heard when they were younger. So you need your good listening ears and you need your good looking eyes, because there's some really cool pictures in here. Right, so I'm going to read you, hang on, Mrs. Lee's going to find it. It's called Mr. Benn, the Diver, okay? And it's an extraordinary adventure. Okay, so good listening ears, here we go. In Festive Road, people were going about their business as usual, and children were playing with their holiday seashells and listening to the sound of the sea. Number 52 is Mr. Benn's house, but there was no sign of Mr. Benn. Where could he be? He wasn't in his room, and he wasn't in his garden, and he wasn't in the park. Mr. Benn was by the river, looking at the boats and thinking about the adventures they have. Oh, it's time I had a new adventure. I'll pay a visit to that special costume shop. And off he went. Inside the shop, as if by magic, the shopkeeper appeared. "Good morning, sir," he said. "What would you like to try today?" Is that a frogman's underwater outfit?" said Mr. Benn. "Yes," replied the shopkeeper. "Try it on." Mr. Benn went into the changing room and quickly put on the frogman's outfit and the special breathing tube so he could swim underwater. "Now for the door that leads to a new adventure," he said. If you know any of the Mr. Benn stories, every time he went through the door, he went into a different place. So he's no longer where we thought he was. He's no longer in the shop. He's now gone. On the other side of the door, Mr. Benn found himself among rocks beside the sea. He walked to the water's edge and he got ready to jump in. "Hey, mind out!" shouted some sailors on a red boat. "It's an underwater boat," thought Mr. Benn. "It's a submarine." "We're going to look for a monster," shouted the captain. "If you see the green submarine, you can say that we'll see the monster first." And the crew climbed into the submarine and slowly slid into the water. Looks like they're going to have a competition. Mr. Benn was just about to jump in the water when there was another shout. "Hey, mind out!" And this time Mr. Benn saw a green submarine. "We're going to look for the monster," shouted the captain. "If you see the red submarine, you can say that we'll see it first. Look out, we're going to dive." And the green submarine slowly slid into the water too. Mr. Benn walked along the shore and met an old sailor who said, "Hello, are you looking for the monster as well?" "No, I'm not looking for the monster," said Mr. Benn. "But tell me about it." "People say there is a monster living in the waters around here," smiled the old sailor. "These two submarines are racing to see who will be the first to photograph it, and they won't stop until there is a winner." "Well, I'm looking for an adventure," said Mr. Benn, and with that he jumped into the water. Look at that picture. Beneath the surface, it was like being in a different world. Mr. Benn was happy to swim around just looking at the fish. He had quite forgotten about the submarines until he saw the red one gliding past him. And a little later, the green one went past. Those submarines are a nuisance, he thought, so he swam to the bottom of the sea. Just when he thought he had seen everything, he spotted a mermaid sitting on a rock and holding something to her ear. "Hello," he said. "You're the first mermaid I've ever seen, but surely you can hear the sea without listening to it in a shell." "It's not the sea I'm listening to," she said. "You listen." And Mr. Benn put the shell to his ear. "Sounds like the wind," he said at last. "Yes," said the mermaid, "but I'm looking for a new shell for King Neptune's birthday, and he already has one that makes that sound." "Do you mean to say you can hear different sounds in different shells?" said Mr. Benn. "Oh, yes," said the mermaid. "King Neptune has shells with the sound of the wind, the rain, birds, all sorts of things." "I'll help you search for a new one," said Mr. Benn. But every shell he found, it seemed that King Neptune already had. And then he picked up an unusual shell that sounded like the buzzing of a bee. "He certainly doesn't have that one," said the mermaid. "Come with me and bring it to King Neptune." They swam and swam and swam and came to King Neptune's cave. "Happy birthday," they said. giving him the new shell, and King Neptune was delighted. And beside the king sat a huge animal. "Is that the monster the submarines are looking for?" said Mr. Benn.
"Yes, it is my pet monster," said the king. "Those submarines frighten him. I do wish they'd leave us in peace."
"Can't you ask the submarines to go away?" pleaded the mermaid. "It's not a very nice birthday for King Neptune." "They're having a race to photograph the monster, but I have an idea," said Mr. Benn, and he swam back to the shore. I wonder what his idea is. There he found a green submarine. "Have you seen that monster yet?" he asked. "No," growled the captain. "You've probably frightened it away," said Mr. Benn. "If you dressed up your submarine to look like another monster, it wouldn't be frightened. Then you could get close enough to photograph it." "Ooh, that's a grand idea," said the captain, and he told the crew to make a monster costume to cover the submarine. Then Mr. Benn went to the red submarine and said exactly the same to the other captain. And with that, Mr. Benn swam quickly back to King Neptune's cave. "I've played a little trick on the two submarines," he said. "Let's see if it works. Follow me." Mr. Benn led the way and they hid behind a huge pile of rocks. "Now watch." In the distance they could see a monster. "That's really the red submarine in the monster's outfit," said Mr. Benn. "And that's the green submarine," he chuckled as another monster appeared. The two submarine monsters moved around taking photographs of each other. They both thought they'd got a photograph of the monster. "We've won!" cheered the red submarine.
"We've won!"
cheered the green submarine. And away they sailed. King Neptune was delighted, and the real monster gave Mr. Benn a ride back to the shore. At the water's edge, Mr. Benn waved goodbye to the king and the mermaid, and then he looked round for the submarines. And sure enough, they both sailed past. The captain of the red submarine smiled and waved a photograph in his hand of the huge monster. And the captain of the green submarine smiled and waved a photograph of another huge monster. Wasn't a real monster though, was it? "Well, they both have their photographs," said the shopkeeper, who had suddenly appeared as if by magic. "You deserve a rest. Come into this cave and sit down." Mr. Benn walked into the cave, and just as he had expected, he found himself back in the changing room where he had started. He put on his own clothes and he handed over the underwater outfit. "Look, there's a seashell stuck into the suit," smiled the shopkeeper. "Oh, it'll make a good souvenir," said Mr. Benn. Back at his house in Festive Road, Mr. Benn listened to the seashell. He wasn't sure if it was the sea that he could hear or the wind. "Anyway, it's just the thing that will help me to remember." Oh, that was a good story, wasn't it? I thought it was quite fitting because we've been talking an awful lot this week, haven't we, about different places on our planet, and we've been focusing a lot on the land, but actually we need to think about our planet underneath the land, don't we? Under the sea, don't we? That's right. Lovely. Thank you so much to Mrs. Eagle for letting me borrow this book. I'm going to go and put it back now, so it won't be here in the research centre, I'm afraid, but there are other books that you can come and have a look at in the research centre. Okay, shall we finish off with our school prayer? I think so. All right then. Do you remember? You can close your eyes, you can fold your arms, you can put your hands together, I don't mind, but you do need to join in with the words. So let's say them. Help me to do the things I should, to be to others kind and good, in all my work and all my play, to grow more loving every day. Amen. Okay, I will see you soon. Bye.